we spent a summer and we put this display together. I was the one that cataloged the points, and Frank, the nephew, he's the one who contacted the Historical Society for these pictures, and we had a frame maker, and just about 4 or 5 businessmen got together in town, and we put this display together, and every single piece was included in this display, and now it's on permanent display at Fort Loramie High School. And this box down here in the corner, everybody asked, there was a piece of moss agate that was just beautiful. And the carpenter that put this together made a box with a magnifying glass with a light shining through it, so you can see all those microscopic prehistoric frog eggs or whatever it is in the moss agate. But ended up being a pretty neat collection, and I'm really proud of this display that we put together. There's not much hard stone, a broken banner stone, a broken butterfly banner, 2 grooved hammer stones, and a celt, and a couple of preforms. But that's all Bob knew. I mean, he didn't know to find the shards of, from flint knapping or pottery shards or anything, but he knew flint. And, I call this a pure collection because he didn't buy a single piece in his lifetime. Everything that he had in his collection came off the farm. And we just put all the broken pieces along the bottom. Made a pretty neat display. So, here's my point. On the Loramie site and the neighboring Burger site, that was on a major portage path which was used for hundreds of generations. Now, to say this, that's when my former student Frank Berger, when he brought this collection over, the last thing he said before he left, he says, "Ken, I think you'll find that some of these pieces are several hundred years old." Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
You ever heard somebody say, "You'll find some of these pieces are several hundred years old"? So I pointed to an archaic bevel. I said, "See that piece right there, Frank?" I said, "Not several hundred. That piece was in the ground probably for 4,000 years before the Egyptians built the pyramids." And it's like, whoa, really? Yeah, this is a treasure you've got here. So, aside from a few minor changes, of course, these guys are carrying firearms and stuff, but things like this changed little over thousands of years on that Loramie site, on that portage path. So when I explain this to people, I use this picture. This is a picture of my family, 5 generations of my family. The picture was taken in 1972 or 73. This little guy right here is now Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. This is my brother, his son, my dad, my grandpa, and my grandpa's uncle. This guy is about 96 years old at the time. This guy's about 96 days old, okay? But you have, the reason I have this is because you have, here is 5 generations in the course of 100 years, okay, roughly. It's 96 years old. He lived to be 97, the oldest man I've ever known. And what I would give today to spend a few hours talking with him, Yeah, such is life, the mystery of life, I guess. But at any rate, think of it this way. When I say in that previous picture that portage path had been used for hundreds of generations, here you have 5 generations to a century. That's 50 generations to a millennium of 1,000 years. 10,000 years is 500 generations. Okay? And that is more, that does not compute. It's more than our mind can comprehend. You pick up a piece like this archaic bevel. This is what I like to collect. But you pick up a piece like this, and here this, you say, well, this thing is probably 7,000 years old. Well, you try and equate that to how many great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpas that is, and it's pretty amazing. It's amazing. It never ceases to amaze me. So, hundreds of generations along this creek. In addition to being located on an important portage path, the Loramie site is also located on long-established Indian trails. This is from William Mills' Archaeological Atlas of Ohio. The Burger Farm and the adjacent, the Loramie site and the adjacent Burger site. So, that's not what I want to talk about. That was more or less as an introduction to the importance of this site. What I want to talk about is to fast forward several thousands of years to the mid-1700s of our era, and the French and the English struggled for control of the continent. Okay, the French claim but do not control the interior of the continent, and the English are crowded in along the coast. It's just going to be a matter of time until basically the two countries, with their colonial policy, they had just a different way of creating a colony. The English had a lot of people on a relatively small amount of land, crowded up between the coast and the mountains, and the French had very few people, but they claimed a huge area. And it's the way they made a living with the furs and so on. It was just bound to clash. They were bound to clash.